The Eiffel Tower is an iconic place.
It represents everything French, the glamour of Paris, and something absolutely unique, sort of je ne sais quoi.
The Eiffel Tower is nothing short of being synonymous with Paris. It's one of the few things in the whole world that you can relate directly to a city. I'm Oliver G, and my podcast is called The Eiffel Tower. I think everybody who visits Paris should climb the Eiffel Tower once. I think it's an absolute must-do. But I think the best views of Paris are the ones that include the Eiffel Tower.
Gustave Eiffel was a self-made man. He was an engineer, and he had a worldwide company that made modular bridges and buildings during the French colonial era. And one of his most famous bridges is in Oporto in Portugal. And if you look at that bridge and then you turn it vertical, you will see how it was the Eiffel Tower was conceived. My name is Jill Jones, and I'm the author of Eiffel's Tower. So the 1889 Paris World's Fair was a celebration of 100 years for them of being a republic. And the fair was very beautiful. At each of these World's Fairs, the idea was to present your best self to the world. The tallest building in the world in 1887 was in the United States, the Washington Monument. It was 500 feet tall. The goal at the Paris 1889 fair was to build a 1,000-foot tower. Eiffel and many other people and businesses submitted ideas. Part of the consideration was who could actually get it built. And Eiffel had a great amount of experience building difficult things all over the world.
The tower was a big puzzle of 18,000 pieces and 2 million rivets. It was not easy, and he decided to build this tower and let the wind go through the tower. It was the invention of Gustave Eiffel, is that the wind has to go through the tower with the steel, and the steel came from the east of France, and just 200 companions in 26 months built the tower. That's why it was a big challenge to be ready for the World Fair in 1889. My name is Patrick Branco-Riveau. I am the managing director of the Eiffel Tower. Gustave Eiffel, he worked with very good engineers, Mr. Noguet, for example. But this architect was very important, Mr. Sauveste. And Mr. Sauveste, he gave the shape of the tower.
People had a fair amount of skepticism. This being Paris, the big issue was this is going to make Paris really ugly.
People have gone on the record forever since the Eiffel Tower was built as saying things along the lines of their favorite place to eat is in the restaurant in the Eiffel Tower, so they don't have to look at it. When the Eiffel Tower was built, there were people who thought it was a bit of an eyesore.
Eiffel pressed on and he built it. And as it begins to ascend into the sky, people see that this is a very modern and very beautiful structure.
Most of the Parisians love it and are proud of it, although I think tourists probably like it more.
Gustave Eiffel had an apartment at the top of the Eiffel Tower, a beautiful view from his apartment.
It had a grand piano. He hosted many famous royals and celebrities of the day up there. The Eiffel Tower during the fair had its own newspaper. So Le Figaro, very famous French newspaper, had a printing press on the Eiffel Tower. And so every day you could read about who came, what happened, goings on in the fair. So when Eiffel began building the tower, it was expected that it would be there for 20 years. It was a temporary structure. The Eiffel Tower was built strictly to be this spectacular statement of French industrial might and modernity. It was just a centerpiece for the fair. So from the minute Eiffel finished the tower, He was always thinking about how could he save it from being torn down in 20 years. And the solution was to make it essential to the French military in their communications with the colonies in North Africa and elsewhere.
Gustave Eiffel decided to go to visit the Minister of War, and he told him that from the Eiffel Tower it could put some military antennas. And the Minister of War decided to say, okay, to Gustave Eiffel, we will put military antennas, and that's why the Eiffel was not dismantled for military reasons.
It was Eiffel who made it his business to see that the tower began to have a very practical national security role.
The Germans were enjoying themselves tremendously. Gleefully, they hung the blood-stained swastika from the Eiffel Tower.
During the World War II, the tower was closed and only the Germans could go to the tower.
When Hitler conquered France, he had his photo taken, and what was in the background was the Eiffel Tower, because that was always the ultimate symbol of France. And on top of the Eiffel Tower was the Nazi flag.
But on the 25th of August 1944, the firemen of Paris came with the freedom fighters to put the French flag on the tower.
World War II was such a misery in Paris and just in Europe in general that to see that the French flag was up there again was just a symbol of hope to people, to realize that those days were coming to an end.
It was symbolically very important to show that now the tower was French again. And very quickly after, the tower opened for visitors of all over the world. And it was very important to show that freedom and democracy was now in France. In 1964, the Ministry for Culture decided to protect the Eiffel Tower and to say that it was an historical monument. It does mean that the tower couldn't be destroyed, and you have to follow some regulations in order to protect the tower. We have to paint the tower every 7 years. It is necessary to protect the tower from the rust. It's a big challenge because it's 60 tons of painting. It's more than 200 workers involved.
The Eiffel Tower is so ubiquitous and so beloved and so symbolic that it's used constantly.
If you look at any movie that has anything to do with Paris or even France, it's like the setting shot to say we're in Paris. And you see it in the background, often in the foreground of any movie or TV show that's here, the Mission Impossibles and Emily in Paris.
During this Olympics, there was a great atmosphere everywhere in Paris and around the Eiffel Tower.
If you think about the opening ceremony, what a way to end it with Celine Dion, another icon, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower singing an Edith Piaf song. It just is mind-blowing, really. So it's no secret how important this iconic Eiffel Tower is, not just to the French people, but to the world. And in terms of the 2024 Olympics, it was the beach volleyball. And I stood there, I did a lap of the inside of this little stadium that they built with the Eiffel Tower looming over it. I thought it was amazing. I was taking pictures from every angle. I'm a Parisian resident. It might have been the most beautiful sporting event I'd ever seen. And we're just talking about beach volleyball by the Eiffel Tower. The marathon went past it. The long distance swimmers, they swam past it. It was one of the main competitors of this Olympic Games, and I think it won the gold medal. If you want to talk about how iconic this Eiffel Tower is, they used a tiny little piece of the tower itself to put in all the medals that the Olympians were given. I think if the organizers put a little bit of the Arc de Triomphe into the medals, no one would really care. But the fact that it was the Eiffel Tower is really a testament to how beloved this monument is.
The Eiffel Tower, since its creation in 1889, welcomed more than 300 million visitors.
What's surprising about the Eiffel Tower is that after 135 years old, it feels completely new. It doesn't feel like an old building. It feels very contemporary. in part because the lights, the electricity, all of that just makes it so much a part of the 21st century.
The funny thing with the Eiffel Tower, I think, is that for people who live here in Paris, it becomes part of the background. You're proud of that background. One of the first dates I had with my wife, we went and stood underneath the Eiffel Tower. People proposed to each other in front of it. It's the ultimate background shot. It's something that says Paris. And it says it so impressively. Even when you're coming in on an airplane, sometimes you can see the Eiffel Tower before you land, and it tells you, I'm in Paris. I think the legacy of Gustave Eiffel, or Eiffel, as the French would say, I think it's absolutely cemented. I think he would be extraordinarily proud, not just of the tower that he left, but of his business acumen. Imagine how he would feel to see it still holding the spotlight 135 years after he constructed it. Really is gobsmacking.
The French embraced the Eiffel Tower 135 years ago, and they have never stopped loving the Eiffel Tower.
What I can see is that the tower touched the heart of everybody, whatever the nationality.
I think it can easily rest on its laurels for a while. It's been 135 years. I think it's got a long future ahead of it. And if this Olympics was anything to go by, I think many future generations are going to continue to enjoy drawing it, seeing it, and of course, visiting and traveling to the top of it and seeing the spectacular view of Paris and beyond.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.